Hey guys, welcome to another Unity tutorial today, and this is going to be in Unity 2018 and above, and it's going to be playing an animation on a trigger. Or playing an animation on a trigger, and then when you walk out the trigger, the animation could stop. Now, I'll give you a quick example of how this works, so you can see it quickly. I've got my controller here, and then I've got a collider in front, and then I've got this fan which will start spinning when I enter the collider. So when I enter the collider, it starts spinning, I move out, it ends. Just as simple as that. And what we're going to need to use is the built-in animation controller, and you will see that we've got a default sort of idle animation which we will transition into a whatever animation that we choose to use. In this case it's a blade spin, so we'll transition to it and from it back to it, and then we'll use some parameters that we're going to make it so that it will be able to spin. Okay, then to get started, all you'll need is your Fps Controller or something like that. You can get that from your standard assets if you right click, import package, and you might have standard assets down here, or you can go to the asset store and download that and import the first person controller. When you've got that, I've just got a little platform for you to see it. I've got a box here which is going to be my trigger, and I've got a box collider on it, and it's ticked is trigger, just so that when we walk into it, it will do a trigger event. Then one thing to remember is on your player, you want to make sure that you've got a tag of player. You can click the drop down and it should automatically have player created. You just select that and it will be tagged player. This will allow us to be able to do the trigger. If people want to know in another tutorial how to actually do animations and things within Unity, I can show that, but just a simple example is I've got the blades here on the fan I've got here, and if you go to Window, Animation, and Animation, you can actually create yourself an animation. I will select the main unit of the fan, go Window, Animation, Animation again, and you will see you'll get this animation dialog box that pops up. You'll say I want to create a new animation. You can click create, you can click name it whatever you want, save it wherever it needs to be, press save. It will create you a controller for the actual whatever object it is, so it'll be desk_fan, and it will give you a new animation. When you get the new animation, you can press the little red record button, move the timeline across, and you can do whatever you want, like say move that there, and here's my animation. It just does it like so. But all we have is I've got my fan blades that just spin and do a loop cycle. I've just got it 0 to 0.15 frames, which it does one revolution of the spin, and then it'll just loop over and over. And if you need it to loop, you can select all the keyframes that you've got and just right click and select auto, and it will not do a sort of gradual fade away like some of the animation because it's based on a curve. And you can just do it so it smoothly rotates. So as soon as we've got that, we've got everything set up, all the animations started out, then what we need to do is here in your folder or wherever you may have saved it, the actual controller, you could rename this if you so wish, you can select the actual controller itself and it'll open up the Animator window. And when you're in here, it will start off, and I will remove what I previously had just so you don't get confused. It will start off something like this, and you will have the name of your animation just in the middle. And if we press play, you can see that the animation just starts straight away, and that's not something that we want. Something that you might want to check is if you double click on that animation, you can click untick or tick loop time, so it'll loop if you leave it ticked. Now, because this is the default animation and it starts, this is just the animation that exists as soon as the game begins, we can right click in some empty space, create a new state, create empty, select this, we can just give it a new name at the top, and we can just call this default state or something like that. And this is the thing it's got no data, so therefore the fan won't do anything when we start. So what we want to do is right click and set as the default layer. So that's all well and good. As soon as the game starts, it will do nothing. It will just have that empty state. Now, we want to be able to transition from this empty state to the actual spinning blades. So we can right click this state and say make transition, and we're just going to connect it up to the blade spin. And then from the blade spin, we want to be able to go from there, make them spin, and then when we exit, stop them. So we'll do the same from the blade spin. We'll say make transition and connect that up. So now we've got two ways to move between them, and you can have as many different animations for one particular object as you want if you had, say, a character. But this is just a simple example. Now we want to be able to create a quick boolean to be able to do whether it's true or false, whether we're in the collider or not. So you can go to parameters at the top. You're usually on layers. I've already got one predetermined, but we'll make another one. As an example, we can click the little plus in the top corner and we have a range of sort of types that we can make it. So we'll just make it a boolean. We'll just call this a play spin 2, just similar to the other. So what we can do is we can click on these connecting transition arrows between the actual states that we've got. And you can see that we've got a conditions section. We can just click the little plus box and we get a selection of the conditions that we've got. So we can click the drop down and select play spin 2. It doesn't matter which because they're both the same. And then we can say that if it's true, we're going to do the blade spin. We'll select the other arrow, select another condition, do play spin 2 and set that to false. So when it's false, we'll go back to the default state. Now, that's all well and good. Now we just need a script to be able to control it. So what we can do, right click in our project panel and create a new C# script, and we'll call this play my animation. And then we'll open up in Visual Studio. And then once we're here, we're just going to do a quick simple trigger event. So we'll say that private void on trigger enter down here, and then we'll in brackets we'll have collider with a capital and other afterwards as just the reference to the collider that we're going to make. And then we're going to actually need a variable or something to hold our actual animation controller so we can access it. So we'll put in square brackets serialized field, then we'll have private animator, because you can have animation, but for this we need the animator because we're going to use that component. And then we can say my animation controller, just a variable name similar to that. And then we'll say that my animation controller dot set bool. So in this case we created a boolean in those parameters. Then we can say that in brackets, then in quotes, we're going to name that parameter that we just created. So we created it play spin 2. And then after the quotation we'll say true. And then we'll put a semicolon on the end. We need to be able to do the actual, to check if we've found the player. So we'll say above there, we'll say if other.compare tag, open up brackets and in quotes we'll say player, and then below there we'll just add 2 curly brackets like so. So we're just saying that if the tag of player enters the collider, we're going to do the animation controller, which is the animator that we'll give it. We'll change the boolean of play spin 2 to true, and we expect the animation to start. Now we can copy this method, paste it in again, and instead of on trigger enter, we can say on trigger exit. Exactly the same functionality, but we'll just have it as false in the end, so that when we exit the trigger or the collider, we'll actually stop the animation. So what we can do, go back into the scene, click on our actual trigger. We can add our play my animation script to that. You can see that it's looking for an animator component. We'll give it the actual desk fan blades because that's the one we want to control. And then again, we'll press play. We'll be here. We'll walk towards it. It will start our animation. And then when we walk out, it will stop it. And vice versa, just as you need it to be. So this was just a really easy way to play an animation, and like I said, you can transition between as many different animations as you want, and you can control it with parameters that you might want to use, using a very simple script to set a boolean to true and false in the animator component, and then you can make something really simple. So hopefully this helps some people out, so thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Cheers.